Right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Devtoberfest 2024. This is the second to last day of Devtoberfest 2024, and we are going to talk about machine learning, AI, and data today. It is the Mad Thursday, as we like to call it. And today's topic is the SAP Cloud SDK for AI, and I have with me Deeksha here. So without further ado, I hand it over to you and have fun.
Yeah, thanks, Nico, for the introduction. And yeah, welcome to everyone from my side as well. Today in this session, we'll be talking about the SAP Cloud SDK for AI and how you can easily use it to infuse generative AI use cases into your business applications. So, what we have planned for you today, just give me a minute. So the agenda for today is we'll take a brief look into Generative AI Hub and the different capabilities it provides to tackle some of the challenges that developers face when building or developing AI solutions. Then we'll do a deep dive into the Cloud SDK, what it offers and how it allows you to integrate with the Generative AI Hub capabilities. And we'll also look at some demos to see them live in action. And yeah, finally conclude with what other capabilities we have an offer in the future. So let's dive right into it. So what is Generative AI Hub? Generative AI Hub allows you to, or allows developers mainly to build AI-driven solutions in a more efficient way and to build it with greater confidence. So it gives you access to a broad range of open source and proprietary foundation models that you can readily and smoothly connect to. You can switch between the various models and experiment with prompt engineering and then decide which model suits your needs best and use that in your productive applications. It also provides services that ensure that the customer data that you're using is safeguarded and also that you are shipping products that use AI responsibly, since ethical use of AI is a major consideration. Now, how you can use Generative AI Hub in your applications, and this is where the SAP Cloud SDK for AI comes into the picture. All of these services you can use programmatically with the AI SDK, and it enables developers to use them in their applications. How? We do it via the different modules that we provide. The first one and the primary one that we'll be seeing in the demo as well is the orchestration. So it provides a harmonized API access across all the different models that you want to use. And you can realize the different use cases by trying out the different models. And more importantly, it includes a lot of pre-built modules that we'll take a look into in a minute that kind of adds more capabilities into your LLM access calls. Additionally, we also have the foundation model. So if you have maybe a more straightforward use case, you don't want additional capabilities, but rather just direct LLM access. We also have a library for that, and we currently support access to Azure OpenAI models. And last but not least, we also have a client that is compatible or provides an interface that is compatible with the industry-leading LangChain library that you can use to build more advanced use cases, such as retrieval augmented generation that we will also take a look a bit later. But for now, orchestration and why it is important. So with the orchestration client, as mentioned, you don't just get like a harmonized access to all the models that you can use, but also various different modules that you can then add on top of your LLM access call. These models are shown in the diagram below. So we have prompt templating. Instead of rewriting your prompts every time, you can create a prompt template and then inject the user data into that and have it as a reusable prompt available for everyone. And then with data masking and content filtering modules, you have a mechanism to mask sensitive data as a way to have data privacy built in, and also filter generated content to ensure that whatever you're delivering to the user is appropriate and more accurate data. All of these modules can be configured, completely configurable. You can omit and include them based on your use case. And how this looks in code, we will now take a look with the demo. So in the demo, we are trying to build a AI hiring assistant. The main task of this assistant is to skim through the CVs of the applicants and then match them against a job description that you already have, and then make a recommendation on whether a candidate is suitable or not. It will also summarize the CV, so then you can also check that the recommendation actually holds. And yeah, let's look into how we can actually build this. So I have a simple Express-based application. To get started, I've already installed the library that you need to implement this. So we have the SAP AI SDK orchestration installed. And with that, we can already get started. So I have already prepared the instructions that I want my AI to follow. So I tell it that it's an HR hiring assistant, and it is given a following job description. And its tasks are, of course, given an applicant CV, they have to summarize it, give a recommendation, and also certain instructions to kind of dictate how it should format the content for better readability. So yeah, we're going to implement this function. This takes in the job description and then the CV of the candidate. So to get started with this, we'll first, of course, create the orchestration client. You can do that by importing the orchestration client, orchestration client from the SDK. So this is already, you can see in your auto completion, and then initialize it or instantiate it with the most basic configuration. This you can also see with the auto completion. So we need to provide the LLM config where you tell it which model it should use, and then also provide a prompt template. So for the model, we will use, say, which models we have available. And this also gives you a list of the supported models. And let's say we want to try GPT-4o. And we provide it with some model params, maybe max tokens, and set it to 1,000, and let's say temperature, and set it to 0 and see the content that we get. And the other module, as we saw, was templating. So here I will add a template. As we already saw that we have an instruction that we want to give to the system. So we'll pass that as a system prompt. So the role, you can set it as system and then pass the content. And here we'll give the instructions that we already have created. And this then is the command to the hiring assistant. The second one, of course, would be the CV. And this would be the message from the user, and the content, of course, would be the CV parameter that we see that we have in the function. How you actually, since we want to inject the job description and the CV here, you can do this in the instructions. You see that this is the format that you need to follow to give like a placeholder, and we will do that similarly for passing the CV as well. So this tells the orchestration client to then inject the value that you pass. Now we already have instantiated our client. The next is, of course, we're ready to execute it. So to run the code, I will try to get the response from the client. So to client.run, chat completion, and then I pass the input parameters. So the input parameters in this case would be the CV that we want and the job description. So these are the parameters that I already have from the function, so I can just set that. And of course, I need to await this call. Now we want to return the function. We want to return a string from this function. So to do that, from the response, you can see that we have some convenience functions that we provide. In this case, you want to return the content that you get from the LLM. So we do a get content. In case if the LLM does not return anything, maybe we just want to send no content back. In case, of course, the call does not work, so you want to have some error handling in place. So, and we want to, of course, see what message you get, and so fix maybe any changes that you have to make. So here I'll just return the error message. And maybe more detailed error message that we get from the response from the orchestration. So we have error response dot data and message. So this gives you a more deeper insight into what actually went wrong. And now let's try and execute it. I think the service is responding. So let's head over to the browser and see how we can test this. So I have, my endpoint is a hiring assistant, and the CV summary, I pass it a CV. I already have 3 CVs prepared, so we'll see how this responds. Okay. Okay, I believe my service. I have to restart. It is running. So let's try that again. Okay, it already responded. So here we see that it automatically, as we instructed it to format the data, does that, gives a recommendation that this candidate is not suitable to proceed with because she's an entry-level developer. And so what we're hiring for is a mid-level developer. So of course, this candidate is not suitable. It also gives some additional summary of the candidate. So yeah, you can see that she has not professional experience, and this is what it is basing its recommendation on. Of course, in certain scenarios, we know that we want to avoid bias in our responses, and also in some cases protect the user's data. So how we can do that is using the masking feature that we saw earlier. So this can also be enabled with a very simple configuration. So you have masking, and there you pass the masking providers. I already have one prepared, and we are going to use the SAP privacy data integration as a provider, and we want to anonymize certain data before we send it to the LLM. So I think this is an array that so this accepts an array. So we want to anonymize the data, and we can set certain types of data that we want to anonymize. So we have, we hide the name of the person, the gender, and maybe some other personal information that we think can introduce bias in the hiring process. And with that, we can save the service and see if we get a different response. So if I go back to the browser and now load the summary again, the LLM should now respond with a different result. Okay. Okay, the service is back up, and I will restart my service again and see now what the LLM responds with. Yeah. So now you can see that it hides the data. So it doesn't print the name, doesn't talk about what gender they are, and kind of masks all of that information away. So this gives a more impartial kind of response where all the personal data of the user is hidden. So now let's see for maybe another candidate, how the LLM processes their CV and how it responds with a different data set. So here it says that, it gives a different recommendation to proceed with a candidate because they have over 4 years of relevant experience, so more suitable for a mid-level developer. But what we also want to ensure, like we saw before, is not just having data privacy, but also ensuring that any content that is not appropriate for the users should be hidden, and that we can configure using content filtering. So you can have a different configuration for filtering that by passing a filtering config. Here we want to filter out any harmful content that was present in the input that was provided. So we set an input filter, and actually we can build that with one of the convenience functions. We currently support Azure Content Safety Filter Service, and so we'll build a filter based on that. The filtering service has or provides 4 categories of content that you can filter. The first is hate, so we'll try to configure it to the maximum safety levels for all the categories. So we set it to 0, which ensures that no harmful content in any of these categories is allowed. This is, of course, the strictest setting that we're trying. And let's see how the API responds now with the different CV. I'll wait for the service to be back up. Try now. Okay, so for the similar CV, let's see if the LLM responds this time. Yeah, so now you see for the same CV that it actually fails, and it says that the content was filtered due to safety violations. Please modify the prompt and try again. So of course, the CV that we tried process has some harmful content, and if we go and take a look at what the harmful content it points to is, of course. So they say that the candidate finds themselves correcting careless mistakes, and often makes them want to kill themselves. This is, of course, inappropriate language, the kind that you want to filter out, and also filter out the candidate if they're using this kind of language. And so you see that, with the correct configuration filtering, you can kind of remove this sort of content from being generated. And let's now look at maybe a different CV and see if they meet all the criteria that we're looking for, and see what the LLM thinks of maybe a different candidate. Yeah. So in this case, they say that proceed with a candidate, and again summarize all the experience they have. The LLM also did not find anything that was inappropriate that it needed to filter. And so, now you know that you've built all the safety guards in place and it works. So, through this, we could see all the different capabilities. Sorry, I wanted to get back to my, So we saw in this demo how you can use orchestration and effectively use all the different modules it provides and kind of integrate them into your use case and have a more safeguarded application. If you have, of course, a simpler use case, as mentioned, you just want to have direct access to a model. In this case, we support Azure OpenAI models and just want chat completion or maybe embedding features. Then you can use the clients directly as well. The usage is very similar to what we just saw. So you can instantiate a client, give the model that you want to use. And of course, you can switch out the models differently, however you want, whichever one you want to use. And then, pass a list of messages as prompts. This is how the chat completion works. And then embeddings also works a similar way. So you provide the embedding model that you want to use and then the data that you want to embed. So what the embedding client then does is create like a numerical representation of this data. And then the LLM is able to then process this data based on whatever you want to do with it. So One of the limitations of normally using foundation models is, of course, that one, they do not have the context or the correct context in which you want to build your application. So they don't have, for example, your private data. And secondly, they are often only trained up to a certain date. So your data is, of course, also not most accurate or most up to date. When you're building real world applications, it's important that the responses that you generate have this contextual data so that the responses are more accurate and include all of this up to date information. And this is where retrieval augmented generation and LangChain play a very important role. Um, and before we go into our LangChain client, maybe a brief introduction on what is retrieval augmented generation and what it does. So this is a process or a technique that allows AI to access your private data and then reason over this data that is introduced to the LLM. How you can do that? So let's say you have different sources of data that could be, for example, you have PDF documents or maybe a website where you have all your data. So you store that data, load the data from the source and using the embedding client, embed the data and then store it in a vector store. And there the data is indexed. So then later, if you want to search through that data, it is easier. This part of the process is basically the storing and indexing part. What happens next is mainly the retrieval. So you have, let's say, a question that the user wants to ask from your data source. So when the question is sent to the retriever, which is then like the component that basically queries the store, the vector store that you created, and then gets only the relevant splits of data that actually forms maybe the context with which you want to operate. And then it sends the original question that you asked, and it is enriched with this appropriate context or more up-to-date information, and then sends that together to the LLM. So now the LLM is, of course, able to reason over this data and give you a more accurate answer that is, of course, context aware and is more useful for the user rather than just accessing a foundation model client, which might not be aware of this data. So this is mainly the retrieval augmented generation process. And of course, one of the most famous libraries that kind of enables you to use this is LangChain. The SAP Cloud SDK for AI also provides a LangChain client, but we're not reinventing the wheel here. So our client that is mainly for the Azure OpenAI client at the moment, it is compatible with the LangChain interface. So it allows you to work simultaneously with the LangChain interface. It supports both chart completion and embedding. And yeah, of course, it is also compatible with Generative AI Hub, but a lot of those features, or actually all of those features, are abstracted. So you don't have to worry about integrating separately with getting the models or anything else. So again, another demo to show how you can use this feature into your application using our LangChain clients for Azure OpenAI. We'll switch back to my demo again. So now we are creating a Q&A application. So I have trained my data on the orchestration client that we saw earlier, and I want the application, which is a question answer application, to answer questions for users who may have any question about how to use the orchestration client or want to have any assistance regarding the usage. So I already have prepared the demo, but I'll walk through it quickly to show you the similar steps that we just saw. So I've loaded the source from my MD file, which is basically my data source for all the documentation regarding the orchestration client that we just saw. And I load it using a text loader. Of course, if the data resided on just a web application, I could use a different web loader, for example, Cheerio web loader or others that are available with LangChain. Once I have the data loaded, I will split the data so that, with a specific chunk size and then an overlap so that between the different chunks, we still are able to maintain some context and then store it in a vector store. So here you can see that we use our Azure OpenAI embedding client. And we're using the text embedding model to embed the data from our documentation. This will, of course, create the embeddings as well as store this embedding in a memory store. We're using an in-memory vector store here. The next step, of course, comes for retrieval. We already have our storage ready. So now the next thing to do is, of course, ask a question and then retrieve the correct or relevant data. So this is our prompt. Of course, this we again tell the AI what its task is. So they are a technical support assistant and they specialize in the orchestration module and are able to answer any questions regarding it. We, of course, don't want it to hallucinate. So we also tell it that if the answer isn't clear, then they can simply state that they don't know. This ensures that, you only provide correct answers. And we want them to create the response brief and then, of course, format the data in a certain way. Now that we have the prompt ready, the next step is that based on a question, we will retrieve the relevant splits from the vector store. So we do that using the asRetriever method that is available on the vector store. And then finally coming to what question we want to ask it. So I'm interested in knowing how I can get the main content from the response object that is returned from orchestration service. And I can then feed this question. So I'll create the LLM that I want to use. And in this case, I, of course, want to use the Azure OpenAI chat client that I have. And the model that I'm interested in, again, is GPT-4o. And finally, I will send all of this information. So the question, then all the context that is retrieved based off this question, all together to the LLM, to the LangChain, and then call invoke, which should then process the response based on the context and the question together. So let's see how the endpoint or our support assistant reacts or answers when they have this question. Reload this. I think the service should be up. Try again. Okay, let me check. Okay, so the server is taking a bit time to respond. I'll try again. Yeah, so you see that it responds. Of course, it still doesn't format it the way that we want it to, but still it's able to process the data, get the relevant information from our documentation. So it says that, you execute the response in this way. And then once you have the response, you can use the get content, response.getContent method from the response object. So it's able to reason from your documentation based on the question that you provided. And that brings me or concludes the demo that I had for LangChain and RAG capabilities. And coming back to what we have next planned for the SDK, what is something that we're currently working on and you can look forward to. So we want to add the grounding module and orchestration client, so that can also benefit from having some sort of contextual data that you can use for your LLM calls. We also plan to support streaming in Azure OpenAI Foundation client, so you can get the responses as and when it is generated instead of waiting for the complete response. We are also supporting prompt registries. So the reusable prompts that you have, you can store them, version them, and reuse them. And this is where the prompt registry plays an important role. And then finally, we are also going to release very soon a Cloud SDK for AI version for the Java library, so people developing in the Java environment or language can also make use the benefits of Generative AI Hub. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. The link here is for our repository. So we're an open source library. You can find all of our documentation there. Any sample code or examples that you can find are also in this repo. So thanks.
All right, thank you very much. I just put the link to the GitHub repo in the chat. Dang it, I forgot the HTTPS, so it's not recognizing it as a link. Anyway, so thanks very much, Deeksha, for your presentation and great demo. We do have one question in the chat, but I think Junji is already covering that one. And then the streaming support was the second one, and that was on your last slide as well. So I think that's all the questions covered. Right, I think we covered all the questions. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your great demo and presentation. A few quick announcements. We do have Front End Friday left for tomorrow. So tomorrow is the last day of Devtoberfest 2024. It's the front end day, Friday, so that's why I'm mentioning it. So make sure to tune in to those sessions as well. And there's also a Devtoberfest contest going on, so you can earn points in this contest and potentially qualify to win the Devtoberfest grand prize. And the contest rules are in the SAP community, and I will put a link to it in the chat here as well. So definitely check that out. And thanks everyone for watching. Thanks so much, Deeksha, for your great presentation. And I hope to see you all soon again. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so the stream has ended. Thank you so much.